when the world gets in my way, I need to make a getaway. So I ride down that old dirt road, the same place I always go. It does a soul good sometimes to be alone from time to time. Take the time and let it all go. Watch the world go by real slow.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Last Hobo's Ramble podcast. And man, I am excited today. I've really been pumped up all day. I've been waiting all week, maybe 2 weeks now for this. Adam is over there. He's getting ready. We're going to let him go through the formal stuff real quick, and then we'll introduce you to our guest here today. And I think you guys will be as excited as I am. You excited, Adam?
I am excited. Can't wait, really. And we've been having some little preliminary conversation here among ourselves while you were working on your technology issues, and even more excited now, really, to be honest.
I think I had a ghost in my system or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. The ghost of John's technology prowess.
Yeah.
But like John said, I'm Adam. I'm the other half of the Last Hobos. We're here today with Mr. Mitchel Whitington. Hopefully I pronounced that right, but
that's great.
Mr. Mitchel there, he actually owns the Grove in Jefferson, Texas. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Mitchel.
Well, I'm a writer by trade. I write books for a living, kind of in two different genres. I write about history, but the fun part of my job is I get to write about haunted places. So I travel around, visit haunted places, and write books about them. So for me, I have a really wonderful job. I'm really blessed. But I also live in a house that was built in 1861, where the ghost stories have been documented for back 100 years. So it's an interesting place to live.
Oh, I can imagine. And that was actually one of my questions here. It was I saw it was originally built in the early 1860s, right there at the beginning of the Civil War.
Correct.
I'm sure that you know a lot about the history. We kind of I did a little bit of research prior to this, but originally built by some folks out of Louisiana, if I'm not mistaken.
Frank Stilley came from Louisiana, and he married the daughter of a cotton farmer that was from Marshall, Texas. And they fell in love, got married in 1860, and started construction on the Grove.
Real quick, Mitchel, if someone doesn't know, someone's listening, they don't know where Jefferson, Texas is.
It's about 15 minutes north of Marshall. If you drop down 15 miles to Marshall, pick up I-20, then you're about 45 minutes from Shreveport.
Right.
So we're deep East Texas.
Yeah. You're up in the northern part of East Texas. So if anybody's looking for it, and Jefferson has a unique history of having quite a few haunted places.
It does. You know, the thing I attribute that to is that it never got touched during the Civil War. A lot of towns like Alexandria, Louisiana was completely burned, and they had to start from scratch. The actual Union troops were coming this way. They were going to burn Jefferson, burn Marshall, and burn Shreveport. And they got turned around in Louisiana. And so after that, we just kept everything we had, even after the war. We still have all the old buildings, all the old homes. So with all these old structures, with a lot of history, come a lot of old stories.
So are you from Jefferson originally, Mitchel?
I'm not. I'm from a little town north of here, about an hour, called Hooks, Texas. We actually used to play Jefferson in football. So, growing up, I knew about Jefferson, but I didn't know about Jefferson. 20 years later, maybe we're in college, right out of college. We're living in the Dallas area, and we're looking for a place just to get out of town. Somebody said, "Well, go to Jefferson." I'm like, we used to play them in football. We came here and we had never seen the brick streets, the old buildings, these hotels from the 1800s you can stay in, and we just fell in love. So
it's got a pretty rich railroad history too, if I'm not mistaken.
This is true. Jay Gould, the railroad baron, came here. Now, Jefferson at the time was a steamboat port. The river was much higher than it is today, and steamboats could come all the way from New Orleans all the way to Jefferson. And so Jay Gould shows up and says, "Hey, you got all this steamboat trade going. Why don't we marry that to my railroads? And the fathers of the town said, railroads are just a flash in the pan. They're just a fad. We're going to keep our steamships. Well, the river fell because of a log jam on the Red River that got cleared, and other series of events. Jefferson was no longer accessible by steamboat. And so Jay Gould supposedly had cursed the town, stood out in the street and shook his fist in the air and said, grass will grow in your streets and bats will roost in your belfries. And so Jefferson did actually die kind of a slow death for a while. And then it was brought back as this old tourist town in the 1950s and 60s.
Cool. Now, when you purchased the Grove, did you know that it was a haunted house? Was that the point of purchasing, or did you?
Oh, no. Now, we had on that first trip to Jefferson, we had gone online. The internet was just starting to kind of, come out. And so we were able to search, and we found this restaurant called The Grove in an old home that was supposedly equipped with ghost stories as well as good food. So we came in, there was a for sale sign out in front of it. And this was in early 2000, I guess. And we looked at it from the outside, and something about it just drew it to us. And we, next time we were in Jefferson for a weekend getaway, we had the real estate agent come out and show it to us. And after that, we tried to talk ourselves out of it for a year and just couldn't. It just kept coming back. Yeah, we need to do it. We need to do it. So here we are 20 years later.
Wow. Yeah, it seems like you guys have made a run of it. I don't know what the livelihood of living and having a haunted house are. I mean, but I know that it's got to be something you enjoy doing to want to live with ghosts. Now, I'm not a skeptic of ghosts per se, but I would really like to see some real good evidence one day, personally. I guess my first question would be for you, not my first one, but my first real ghost question would be, is there any ghost talk about ghosts and things like that in the Bible? Or
oh, yes.
Okay, so it's not because I know there speaks of demons in there, but now the difference between a demon and a ghost, can you maybe tell us that?
Sure. Angelic beings and human beings are two completely different races of animal or being or whatever you'd like to call it. An animal, the animals like on the earth, they're below the humans, but the humans are kind of on that side of it where the angels are divine and they are messengers of God. Well, as the Bible tells us that the demons are fallen angels and that there is behind the scenes a big good versus evil war going on. And so I truly believe that's going on. I'm a Christian myself, so I absolutely believe that. But that's completely different from what I think the experience of ghosts are. Like I've never been scared. We've never felt like there was an evil presence here. In fact, we've become quite comfortable with them. So it's interesting.
Okay, so you would say you have more like a Casper the Friendly Ghost than you do like on some of these shows that my daughter, you've seen earlier, she likes to watch these ghost hunter type shows, and I'm sure you're familiar with those. Well, it seems like most of the ghosts they encounter are mean spirited, evil. Is that fair assessment of what some of the shows portray?
So yeah, you're absolutely right. But it's not that the ghosts that they cover are mean and evil. That's the way they're portrayed, I think. For example, we got invited to be on one of those shows, and so they sent a film crew here to stay at the house for a couple of days, and they filmed everything. But then they flew us out to L.A. so that they could interview us in the studio. So one at a time, they had us in a room with all the cameras and lights and the makeup people, the whole thing. And as I was talking, the guy said, don't smile, the director, It's like, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, you're smiling too much. And I'm like, well, I enjoy talking about this. This kind of makes me happy. So don't quit that. It's like, well, I don't have a scary story about my house. So I think it was frustrated, but you could tell he was wanting to make it into something that it wasn't. Okay. And we're protective of the place as well. One of the things that we have happen is a lady in a white dress occasionally walks through our house, and you can see her. She looks as real as you or me. And it's more of a just, you're not expecting it, and just out of the corner of your eye, you see something and look, and she's going down a corridor or something. But I had a show contact us, and they said, okay, we want to reenact that. And I said, okay, but if you're going to reenact it, it's got to be really accurate. We want to respect the house. And they said, okay. And then we're going to say it's the ghost of Diamond Bessie, which is a famous lady that was murdered here in Jefferson. And I said, well, but that's not the case. I know a lot about Jefferson's history, and Diamond Bessie was never in this house, to my knowledge. And they said, well, but that's just what we're going to say to make it interesting. And I said, well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to make anything up. I don't want to tell lies about my house. And the producer just got mad at me. Well, I wouldn't tell a lie on there. And I said, well, you just told me you were going to. So we're really protective about stuff like that.
Well, I don't blame you.
I think a lot of that is drama sells, right? All the controversial, mean-spirited, all that. But
I have a friend that was a producer of one of those shows, without naming it, of course. And she actually quit because she learned that there was another team behind the people on the show and the people that were doing the production, and their job, without letting anybody else know, was to fake things. And it upset her so much she quit. So, there is an element of that there. It's all about selling TV time.
Exactly. So go ahead, Adam.
John and I would never do that except to mess with each other. So,
well, Adam and I, we've been all over the country, and we've stayed in some pretty interesting places. And is snoring a good deterrent against the ghost?
I'll never be haunted, is what he's getting at.
It's my wife would probably tell you that maybe that's why we don't have a lot of supernatural activity in the bedroom, because maybe sometimes I do that same thing.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon for the middle of the night for me to feel the hand on my shoulder shaking me. Wake up, you're snoring.
Right. We've been down that road.
I can relate.
Maybe you said that one of the ghosts you had was a lady there. Maybe you can give us a rundown of the different ghosts and what you know about them, or the past life they had.
One of the, I guess, legends about the house when we bought it, I was able to, luckily I've met the previous two owners, and I had a chance to visit with them and get their stories firsthand. And this lady in a white dress walks through. She walks down the east side of the house, steps up through a wall, and then walks across the width of the house to what used to be the children's bedroom years ago. So if you start doing research on the house like we did, you would find that where she steps up through the wall is actually where the house used to end. That used to be the back of the house. So she's probably not stepping up through a wall. It's much more likely she's stepping up onto a back porch that was there prior to the addition that was made in 1870. And if you look at the owner chain, only one woman would remember the house in that configuration, and that's the original lady of the house, Minerva Stilley. So we think it's her, and she's taking a path that she remembers in her life. And she doesn't seem to interact or anything. She just goes by, and we say, oh, I saw the lady in white today. I saw Minerva.
Then do you see her often?
Not. It's really weird. There's very few things that happen in the house that happen at a certain time. Unlike on TV, nothing happens at 3:25 a.m. every morning. Nothing.
Right.
Thank goodness. But people ask me all the time, "Can we come over on Halloween?" I was like, "Well, we're going to be on the front porch giving out candy to little kids, but why?" "Oh, that's the most haunted time." I was like, "I'm not sure that's true." So no, we haven't noticed any particular. Nothing special about midnight.
Okay.
I remember years ago, 2006. I don't know how many people called me and said, "You're not going to be in the house tomorrow, are you?" And it was June 5th. And I said, "Well, yeah, we're going to be right here." Why? And they said, "Tomorrow is June 6th, 2006, 666. Like, just please.
Yeah.
Just another day. Yeah.
Kinda
Halloween's
like,
just another day.
some of them numbers things where that, if you take something and you add 13 to it and divide it by 12 plus 42 and take the cosine of it, it turns out to be 666. And you're like, well, if I got to do trigonometry or something, I'm not going to make it. So,
No. I think when all that really goes down, the devil's going to make it pretty easy for people to latch on to it.
I think he is too. So, so what other spirits or ghosts do you have in the house?
We have a man out in the garden. He's wearing a black suit. wearing an old-fashioned hat. And the first time I saw him, we had just bought the grove. But the grove, by the way, is named for the grove of native Texas pecan trees that surround the house.
Okay.
On the historic record, the official name is the Stilly Young House, but everybody's always called it the Grove, and we think that came naturally. People probably, said, where'd Stilly build this house? Oh, he built it in that grove of pecan trees. Where Stilly live? Oh, at the Grove. So, when we bought it 21 years ago now, golly, it had always been called the Grove, and we're very traditional. We kept that name. But anyway, we were leaving and walking out the side door to go to the car and go get groceries or something. And I looked over, and here was a guy. We have a little fenced-in backyard for our puppies, so they can go outside and go to the bathroom, come back in. And I looked, and there was a guy leaning over on the fence and just looking at me, just smiling real big, like he was, kind of making fun of me. And I thought, somebody's in our backyard. So I ran back in and blew out the back of the house, just in the dead run. And I don't know what I thought I was going to do, probably get my rear end kicked, if somebody was really there. But I went out there and it was empty. So I called Patrick, the previous owner, and I said, I just saw the weirdest thing out in the yard. He said, a guy in a black suit laughing at you. And I said, yeah, that's pretty much it. He said, yeah, we see him occasionally. We don't know who he is. He's always just seems to be walking around, but he's always smiling. He's a really happy fella. So,
wow.
If I see one, that's what I want. I want a happy, smiling one.
And he doesn't look like a TV ghost. Sometimes I'll be driving up, and if I see somebody walking across the yard, I'm like, who's in our yard? Because we do have a fenced-in yard, big fence around, not just our dog fence, but a big fence. And somebody got in, and I'll pull in and look, and there's nobody in the yard at all. So it's just when you're at the right place at the right time. People always say, can I see a ghost? I'm like, I don't even know. It just shows up at the right place, the right time, I guess. But
right.
We've had there's a lot of just weird things that happen in here. We were talking about, hearing a door open before the show, and that happened to me not too long ago. I have my office as a little rolling desk with my computer and everything on it, so I can take it on the front porch if it's nice outside, or wherever I want to. And I was in the den. I'm sitting back there just typing on my keyboard, and I heard the front door open. The front door makes a squeak, like any respectable haunted house. But anyway, I'm sitting there, heard the front door open. And I thought, well, my wife has come home, and she, just dashed in the front instead of pulling all the way around the driveway. And so I'm sitting there waiting for her to say something, and she did. And I start thinking, well, the door hadn't closed. It's now open. How many people are up there? What's going on? And then my mind went to the scary place of, oh, what if it's humans? What if it's somebody who really wants to hurt me or something like that? So I got up there thinking, man, I hope I don't have to get into some kind of fight to protect myself. But the door was closed. It was locked. But I hear that squeak all day, every day when I go in and out to get the mail, to get the paper, whatever. And, no question about what I heard. It's just, I don't know where it came from. So.
Wow.
Yeah, John and I, we've spent a little bit of time in some cemeteries.
Oh, here we go.
Like to pay our respects to, people who are Stevie Ray Vaughan. We've been there, and Oral Roberts. We've seen his, and who else, John? There's several. Towns Van Zandt. Towns Van Zandt. So we went to see Towns Van Zandt, and we're looking for the grave. It's a nice fall day, and it's kind of getting dusk. And I mean, it was set just right.
It was a miserable, misty day. It was gray. You've heard of a gray day? It was actually gray. Okay, was it not? It was both colors. It was black and white.
It's what you imagine if you're watching a movie or you're reading a good book with kind of a spooky storyline.
Right.
And I saw a deer over in the corner on the driver's side of the truck. I was driving, and I said, man, look at that deer. And out of nowhere, John says, whoa, oh. So I slam on the brakes, and I'm like, what's going on? And he says, oh, my gosh, I almost ventilated that scarecrow right there. We both are carriers, but as I crept forward in the truck, somebody had bought one of those little, Walmart scarecrows and put it out there.
Right. 2.5 feet tall.
Anyway, the windows were down, and it was just right. But he almost had a premature firing of the weapon there. He thought something was after him.
He doesn't
like that story.
I was prepared to take action if I needed to. But who puts a scarecrow in a cemetery, man?
It worked.
It did work.
Somebody with an interesting sense of humor. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I knew who it was, I'd have given them $50.
I know you would have.
But so Mitchell, you I doing some research. Like I said before the interview, I wanted to kind of be prepared. But I saw several places they called you the 5th most haunted home in the U.S. and one of them had you on the list of the 12 most haunted homes in the U.S. And I thought that was interesting, but certainly you've garnered national attention.
Yeah, I don't know how they, they make that determination. It's not like there's a machine that says, "Oh, here's a haunted rating on this place. Here's a haunted rating there." I don't know, but it's fun. Yeah, and USA Today just named us. We were number 3 out of the top 10 haunted destinations in America. So we were proud of that.
Wow,
Whatever
that's awesome. Good for you, man.
That's awesome.
Even the better thing about it was a reader poll. So it wasn't just somebody arbitrarily deciding that. So we were really proud. It made us feel good that, we have people that think that much of us.
That is awesome. That's a big deal, especially for y'all. I mean, and I liked it, like you said, it's a reader poll, right? I mean, it's actual people voting instead of, like we were talking about earlier, one of the ghost hunter groups deciding on people behind the scenes making bangs and booms.
That's right.
But I also noticed,
brings up one. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I also noticed that you've had a lot of famous people there, and I know maybe some of them were before your time, but I mean, I saw people like I guess Penn and Teller had a show.
They did. It's called. Well, the show is BS is the name of it.
Right.
And so they came to film, and they weren't here because I was all excited about meeting Penn and Teller. I love Penn and Teller. Mm-hmm. And they so the crew gets here and they're doing. I said, well, "Where's Penn? Where's Teller?" "Oh, no, we don't have them. They'll come to the studio and they'll record over it." So, but when they finished it, and I was watching the show, Penn said, because the people that were here interviewed me, and Penn goes, "This is Mitchell. He owns the house." I was like, "Penn said my name." Same thing happened with William Shatner had a show. It's a Canadian show, and they sent somebody down here, and my wife and I are big Star Trek fans, so first thing we did is, "Where's Bill? Where's Bill?"
Right.
Like, we travel around the country, we shoot all these shows, we edit it, and then we get him for 2 days when he sits in a sound booth and narrates.
Oh, wow.
But he said my name too. I heard him say, "This is Mitchell and Tammy that own the Grove." I'm like, Captain Kirk said my name. It doesn't take much to really excite me,
You want to put that on your phone, right? Just go around playing it for people. So, you brought up Adam touched on, and you brought up earlier that some of these things are they add noises and things like that to make the make it seem more than what it is. So my question is, with paranormal industry being, I guess, one of the highest grossing tourist attractions right now, how do we know which are real and which are fake? Can you touch on that maybe?
Sure. The things that we have happen in the grand scheme of things, you would think are kind of dull. You see a lady in white walk by, you see the guy in the garden, something, you turn your back and something's moved, but nothing really exciting. But you have to realize that Hollywood is what sets our expectations. And I can give you a good example. I don't know if you remember a movie several years ago called Winchester. And it was about the Winchester Mystery House. Yeah. At Sarah Winchester that lived there. Well, the movie has all this dramatic stuff and all these demonic faces and knives and shreds of glass going, shards of glass going through the air. But I have actually written about the place, and I've been there a number of times and interviewed people that work there. And you say, "What's it like to work here?" It's like, weird stuff happens, but nothing scary. So, Hollywood has to put that edge on it. So if you're looking at something that sounds like it's out of a Hollywood movie, probably means it is. Yeah.
So do you think that there are some people out there that are running these as businesses and maybe adding things to make the bumps and the lights and the devices go off and things like that? Okay.
There's no question about that. There's a restaurant on the West Coast that I won't name, just because I'm going to say something a little it's kind of bad about them, but
Okay.
yeah, they have a reputation for their ghosts there. It's on the coast there, and there's they have their lady that shows up, and they actually went through and wired it so that they could make the LUTs sway back and forth. And, they had all these controls, and I found that out, and it just broke my heart. And I was talking to one of the people. It's like, why are you doing this? I mean, people that are actually hoping that they might see something are going to get confused because you're doing all the Hollywood special effects stuff for them and not letting them have a real experience. Oh, that's just what they want. That's what they want. So there's no question some places do that.
I guess, Mitchell, another question is you touched on something earlier, is that the lady who haunts your house, they gave her the name of another lady, and you said, well, she didn't even live here or anything. Can ghosts attach themselves or become attached to a house or a place of somewhere where that person did not die?
So I've had a lifelong interest in the supernatural, and I've been studying it for my whole life and writing about it for 40 years, but actually making a living writing about it for 20. So my opinion, the number one thing is this is all just opinion. None of us know for sure what's going on the other side. We all will, but I don't want to hurry that.
Right.
But I think that from my experience, I see that spirits seem to be attached to places or people or objects. And not in a bad way. I don't think anybody's stuck and can't get to the other side. I mean, at the end of the day, God's on the throne. He's not going to let his order of things get messed up by having somebody get stuck on earth in some house and can't move on to the other side.
Right.
I think it's, at least for my understanding for myself, I believe it's people coming back to visit people, places, or things that are important to them. I have a good friend of mine, and she and her husband were great friends of my wife and I for years, and we lost him unfortunately to cancer. And he, or maybe a year after he had died, their daughter had come with their grandkids to show to our friend, and she was talking to the baby, and he was just getting old enough to kind of talk and make words, and he kept looking in the corner and waving, and she said, what are you looking at? And he said, Papa, which is what he called his grandfather. And she and I had a long conversation. She's like, well, if my husband can come back, why won't he come see me? I miss him so much. And I said, well, for some reason, he's wanting to communicate with his grandson. Maybe he knows that you're actually okay. And maybe it might kind of put a bump in the road if you did see him, because you can't be with him right now. You can't.
Right.
But the grandson has a completely different perspective on it. Maybe, that's why. But yeah, I think that nobody is really stuck anywhere. I think it's a choice to be able just to come back and visit.
That's cool. I know I've heard several stories like that of people who were, had a grandparent or something pass, and the grandchildren would see it, but the parents don't, things like that.
Yeah, right.
And I was one, that brings up this, maybe kids are more open to seeing things than adults are in some way.
A lot of people say that because they haven't been, whereas, we're adults, we've made it all the way through childhood going, oh, there's something weird. And, our parents going, no, it's not, that's not real. Don't worry about,
Right.
So you kind of been beaten down to where, a child with a pure open mind might be able to process more logically than we are. So
I know that the church that I go to, it dates back to the early 1900s, and I mean single digit 1900s. We have records in our church that go, I was looking at some last week, it was 1911, roll call and things. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to a gentleman there after I joined the church, and he told me, said, a man killed himself in this church. I was like, no, I didn't ever know that. And he said, yeah. He said, depending on what story you listen to, he committed suicide on the first or last pew, right? So I've been out there all hours, day and night, to do work on it. And I've been up in the attic and, all the stuff you do when you have old buildings. And I've been all around, been there by myself many times. I've never really felt uneasy or anything. Um, so, and I realize not that everybody that dies in a place haunts that place or returns to it, but uh, you know, that's one. I guess that was the base of my question. Sometimes spirits attach to a place, sometimes maybe they don't, but they don't necessarily have to die there to attach to that place, correct?
Right. It might be,
Right.
and again, this is just my opinion. I want to be careful about that.
Yeah, yeah, no,
But yeah, I think it's something that might have been special to them in life.
yeah.
And we had a suicide here at our house. The fourth owners, their son. This is back. They bought the house in 1885, and their son took his life. He hung himself on the back porch. Well, fast forward in 1930, that back porch was converted into the first indoor bathroom in the house. So people say, "Oh my gosh, I don't want to go to your bathroom." That's where the guy killed himself. And that's the one room in the house I have no stories about.
Oh, really? So you don't have anything with him in it then?
Right. And I personally, I believe he just, whatever troubled time he was having in his life, he just doesn't feel the need or inclination to come back and visit. So.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Again, just my opinion, but.
Well, you're the subject matter expert here. Me and Adam are we're kind of the novices, but this is very interesting. So, what do you got there, Adam?
No, I would agree with that 100%. We're definitely not experts. But so Mitchell, I mean, I know you mentioned that you're a writer, and a lot of it has focused on, like you said, haunted places. One of your books, where could you tell us where we could get copies? And if somebody was going to start with your material, what do you think would be a good first place to go?
Well, it depends. I wrote a book on the Grove that's not only the history of this house, but the history of the hauntings here, the ghost stories here, if you were going back several different owners. And that was one of my favorite books. But I also have done books about regional hauntings. Like I did one just on Jefferson. Jefferson has so many ghost stories that I did a book called Haunted Jefferson, where I went through and actually dug out all the stories around the town that I could find. I also did one more broader than that, Ghost of East Texas, which goes from Jefferson as far north all the way down to, the southern part of the I guess, East Texas region. So Huntsville, I guess, maybe. But anyway, a lot of different places, a lot of different things that happen. So it just all depends on, what you're looking for. But I did a national book called A Ghost in My Suitcase, A Guide to Haunted Travel in America, where I tried to find a haunted place in every state. And that was kind of fun to write. So that's out there too.
That'd be cool.
That sounds like a cool trip, don't it, Adam?
Yeah.
There's actually a whole bunch of them.
I bet. So, of all these, to interrupt here, because I don't mind stepping on Adam too much, but the places you went, you went to 50 states, or did you do 48 continental states, or?
The way that worked out was I was trying to do all 50 states, and it was a multi-year project because it did require a whole lot of travel.
Wow.
But my editor was like, "Hey man, you're getting close to the end, and if you don't mind, I'll tell a quick story."
Sure.
I was getting close to the end, and so I said, it's going to take a little bit longer. I mean, number one, I'm not rich, so I don't just book a private jet to carry me from place to place. I got to work this into places where I can travel and knock out several states at once, that kind of deal. But anyway, she said, look, you're getting down to the end. Some of these, you're just going to have to, get a relationship with the place, call them, interview them, do it by phone, do it by video, whatever you want to do. And so one of the places I found was a bed and breakfast up in Annandale, Minnesota. And so I called the lady, told her who I was, and I said, I'm afraid my editor's going to cancel my contract if I don't hand this book in. Can I interview over the phone and you send me pictures and all that? Yes, we did. And we kind of, I guess, talked 2 or 3 times. But at one point I was looking for, I said, what do you have interesting about your B&B? What can I write about what you do? And she said, well, I'm psychic and I tell people's, I do a reading for people when they come, just as my guest, just for free, just to give them a little bonus. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Well, I finished the chapter. did that with a couple of other places, turned the book in, didn't think about it. A year later, full calendar year later, I'm working on another book, and I get an email from this lady, Sharon, at this B&B, and she said, "Is everything all right in your life?" And I said, "Well, it's really not. We had a basset hound that we had for 14 years, my wife and I, even though Marley the cat's in here walking around now, but we're dog people, and we've had basset hounds all of our lives together. And so our dog Samantha had died just a few days before, and it was really a tough one. Second dog we'd lost that year, and it's, those babies get in your heart. I mean, they dig right in. So it really messed us up, and we hadn't really talked about it. We hadn't told anybody. And she said, "Can you call me?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Something's going on. You've experienced a loss." And I said, "Yeah, I have." And she said, "It was a pet." And I said, "Yes." And I hadn't talked to this lady in a year. I didn't put this out on social media. I mean, at the time I was writing this, social media is not what it was today, where everybody posts everything. But she said, "Well, that explains a lot." She said, "Because I'm getting a vision of 3 dogs together." And I said, "Really?" And Samantha was the 3rd basset hound in our marriage that we had lost. And she said, "Yeah, she wants you to know that it didn't hurt much, but when you think about her, it feels like the sunshine on her fur."
Oh.
And I was like, "Wow." And she said, "More than that, the 3 of them are looking for a new dog for you, and they're going to find one that has characters of all 3 of them." And sure enough, that's what came into our lives pretty quick. So
Wow.
The fact that I couldn't travel there actually ended up being a really interesting story that I can't explain. She had no way of knowing any of those things. And
Wow.
even my best friends in town here don't even know that, when we lost Samantha, we had 2 dogs before her. I mean, it was crazy. But
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, we're both dog. We both are dog
Yeah,
families. So
That's pretty tough, though. All right, well, here, Mitchell, if you don't mind, I'm going to throw some questions at you. These are going to be some serious, some are asked by other people. There's going to be a couple silly ones in there. Those are going to be from me. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you now. But if you could, just answer them, and we'll move on. Okay.
I haven't seen these Mitchell. So if you have to answer with sign language, I understand.
Well, I can't read them and see them at the same time, so I got to pull it up on my screen. Okay, so number 1. How do you tell if a house or a place has single ghost or multiple ghosts?
I have rarely seen a place that just has one entity. Usually, if you're going to have that kind of activity, it's probably going to be on a little bit broader scale, at least from my experience.
Okay. Earlier we asked about the ghosts, and some of them being more demon-like, and some of them being just nice entities that are there. And I think we came up with it. Most of the ghosts that you've had experience with have been nice.
Yes.
You've not had anything like that, so okay.
Almost exclusively.
Right.
That doesn't mean that when they do something in a house or a building or wherever they happen to be, that it doesn't scare people. I mean, sometimes people freak out, but it doesn't mean that it's malicious either, though.
Right. Well, they're ghosts. That's their job, right?
Exactly.
Sometimes they scare you. So do you find that ghosts, and I think we touched on this a little, do you find that ghosts have different personalities, such as mischievous, mean, joking, different things?
Absolutely. And y'all have to forgive me. I have to keep adjusting my earbuds for some reason.
No, you're fine.
But if that's my worst technical problem tonight, I'm going to be okay with it.
Yeah, still doing better than me.
You're still ahead of John. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah, they just have there's just different personality in the ghosts and things.
No question. In our den, which was added in 1870 as a family room, and it's a little bit more informal than the formal sitting parlor where I am now. But when that room was added, I think it's had all these years of family time together in there, a lot of fun and happiness. And that's why I think the things that happen in that room are like they are. Things are really mischievous and fun. On our tour, we have people get their hair pulled or get an earring pulled. It's almost always the ladies. So my wife and I believe it's got to be a guy spirit that still has an eye for the ladies, but it's always fun, mischievous stuff. One time, a lady on the tour, she got swatted on her rear end. And so after the tour's over and everybody left, I went in there and I had a talk with the house. I'm like, that cannot happen. Do not do that
That's
again.
right.
And so far, it hasn't happened again. But I did have a group of the what do you call them? The Red Hat ladies on the tour one time. And I was telling them that story, and they were all, "Oh, can't we suspend that rule for the day?" So yeah, there are definitely some mischievous spirits and some that seem to be more solemn.
Well, I've got a story I'll tell you one day about something, but I won't tell it where in the public. How's that? But
Good enough.
Adam laughs at me about it. Okay, so I'm sure that you've seen the movie Ghostbusters
Yes.
many years ago, probably, but we all seen. Do you ever run across a ghost that let me see if I can see Adam while I'm saying this. Do you ever run across a ghost kind of like Sigourney Weaver's character in there? And if you do, can you direct us to where we might run into her?
No, no. Actually, I want to run into the Sigourney Weaver from Alien. Actually,
that one scares me though. The other one don't scare me, but
I know, but
that Alien one, boy,
I don't
she
know,
was
man.
tough.
You might need to go back and watch Ghostbusters.
Yeah. Hey, but I watched Alien. She was mean in that sucker now.
oh, she was tough. But yeah,
Oh,
she was,
yeah. She did some really good parts in the paranormal activities, what I'll call it,
Yep.
So yeah. Okay, so let me run down this next one. Let's see. Is there any place in all your travels and visits that you would go or have been, read about, know about that you would not go and stay or don't want to go to?
I did a book called Ghosts of North Texas, and I put a cemetery in the book. It was kind of outside of Jacksonville, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's actually the site of the worst Indian massacre in Texas history. And they built a monument to it, and there's a graveyard there. So there's also some ghost stories associated with it. So I went to the graveyard to write about it, to, just kind of take some pictures and get some feelings from it, walk around. And as I was there, the longer I was there, the more scared I got of what I don't know. Didn't see anything. I just felt like this really sudden urge to get out of there, And so finally I thought, well, I've got enough stuff. I can go back. And I started walking to the car. And by the time I got back to the car, I was in a dead run. Jumped in, hit the door lock, and I thought, well, that's crazy. If something supernatural is scaring me,
Right.
The door lock's not going to help much. But anyway, I did write the chapter, and I did put it in the book. And I guess maybe a year later, I was speaking somewhere, and I had to go through Jacksonville, and I saw the turnoff for the cemetery, and I thought, maybe I just ought to check it back, one more time, see if I was just as scared. So I went to it, I got out, and I walked around, and it was just so peaceful. Everything was wonderful. And, the only explanation I could think of was, maybe that first time, if there was some supernatural presence there, they were kind of apprehensive of, what are you doing? What are you going to do with us? What are you going to write about? And then after the book came out, maybe they had the feeling was, oh, okay, he was good to us. He didn't write anything bad.
Right. Well, that's cool. I'm kind of like Kim on that, Adam. If I'd have taken off running, though, Lord have mercy on a scarecrow, buddy, because I'd have probably ventilated something on the way running. Let's see.
You know me, I'd rather it catch me than have to run.
Yeah, I'm not running. That's the last problem.
I don't want it to get me either, but hey, those are my choices.
This is a pretty good question, I thought. What all ways do you know of that ghosts can manifest themselves? It's visually, sounds, cold air. I've heard different, we hear
Smells.
these people say smells. Okay.
Yeah, there's one room in our house that occasionally has a smell of pipe tobacco, and we don't smoke or allow smoking in the house, but just occasionally, and it's really not that often. It's kind of rare. You walk into the room, and it smells like somebody just smoked a pipe in there. Well, on one of our tours one time, we walked in, and sure enough, everybody smelled it. Before I could say anything, one of the ladies said, "Hey, who smokes Prince Albert?" And I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, that smell. That's Prince Albert pipe tobacco. My daddy smoked it his entire life. I could pick it out anywhere. So I thought, okay, I don't know who it is, but now I know what he smokes.
Wow.
So I went out later in the week and I bought one of those little tins of Prince Albert pipe tobacco. And I walked through the house saying, I'm going to put this back in the kitchen. It's going to be right back there. If anybody needs it, you just help yourself. So periodically I open the lid to see if the level of tobacco is going down. It's not. So he's got his own secret stash somewhere. But
well,
so
that's cool about the smell thing's really cool, because I know there's a couple times in my life that I've smelled things that reminded me of my grandmother's kitchen.
Yeah.
And I don't mean necessarily the food, but just the way the kitchen smelled, when you'd be in it. So maybe.
They say that your sense of smell is one of the strongest things to invoke memories. So, that makes perfect sense.
That's pretty awesome.
Growing up, we had a house. My parents owned, so Leon, that's my dad. He, we smelled a lot of cigar smoke just out of nowhere, and nobody smoked.
Right.
Just wasn't something we had in the family at the time, and we would smell cigar smoke. And it was the 90s, and Leon's a little anal about things. He had mats down, runners in the hallway, like plastic mats.
Yeah.
Well, he had never told us, but one day my parents got home and all three boys are sitting on the front porch. We got home from school, went in the house. We were in the den, and we heard somebody walking on that mat back there. And so we're like, oh, man, Mom's home. So we go in. Well, can't find anybody. So, hey, we're sitting on the porch then. And he comes home, and at dinner, he fessed up. He goes, I was here because he was working nights. He was like, I was here one day, and I thought your mama had come home. I heard somebody walking on those mats. So he still says it was a haunted house. My mom loved that house, and she was very upset when they sold it. And so there was something in there. There were at least 6 people, and there's only 5 in the family. So,
well, and you talked about your cat Marley. There, is that named after Bob Marley?
No, actually, when Marley joined us, we're dog people, and now we have a cat. So we didn't know whether it was a boy cat or a girl cat, and I said we got to call it something. So my wife said, "How about Marley?" Because that's popular for boys and girls these days.
Right.
And then Monday we'll go to the vet, and he can tell us everything. So it turned out to be a boy. But turns out Marley is my one of the characters in one of my favorite books, which is Dickens' A Christmas Carol.
Right.
And then my favorite singer in the world we just lost, Jimmy Buffett.
Yeah.
And his son is named Cameron Marley. So I tell people, I didn't know it at the time, but I tell people it's Jimmy Buffett's son I named it after. But actually, it was just the character from Christmas Carol.
So if it was after Jimmy Buffett's son, it would really kind of go a couple removed, but that would get you back to Bob Marley, because that's where he come up with
That's where he got it. Exactly.
Yeah.
You're right.
We did a podcast about Jimmy Buffett passing away. We're music guys and Texas music guys, and Buffett's he was kind of that. He kind of was the mascot of our spirit. We think sometimes, that we just, we like that whole beach bum type thing. So, but yeah, a great loss right there. Can pets see spirits?
Yes, and the reason I believe that is we one time during our tenure here, we had a basset hound named Lily, and Lily, we rescue dogs. We really feel that that's kind of our thing.
That's a great thing.
So we had rescued Lily. Somebody had bought a dachshund for their little girl, and the dachshund kept growing bigger and bigger and bigger. And they went, oh, it's a basset hound. So they were going to take it to the pound. So Lily came to live with us, and she hadn't been here long. And our den has French doors going out into the hallway. And she was sitting on the outside, or in the inside, I guess, of the closed French doors, and she was watching in the hall. And Tammy said, "Hey, look at Lily." And I look, at Lily's going back and forth like she's watching a tennis match, And I said, well, it's almost like something's walking up and down the hallway, and she's watching it. So I stood up and I opened the door and I said, "Come on, Lily, you can see there's nothing bad in here." And Lily walked out into the hall, and then turned around, ran back into the den, got down, behind my wife's legs there, Tammy's legs, and just hid. She got down there scared to death. Well, turns out to go outside to where she can go to the bathroom, she's got to walk down the hallway. Well, she refused to go down the hallway. And I had to put the harness on her and say, "Come on, Lily, I'm gonna take you out here. I'm just gonna show you everything's okay." And the whole time I'm dragging her into the hall. She's like, "No, Daddy, no." But once she got out there and walked around, everything was cool. No more problems. But she saw something, though.
Yeah, me and my daughter, the reason I was pointing at myself, we rescued a, I guess we'd call that a dash hound, Adam, part dash hound.
Yeah, I think it's half dash hound, half lab.
Yeah, she's half dash hound, half lab, but she's about 2.5, 3 feet long, and probably, she's probably that big around, and she weighs about 40, 45 pounds.
Yeah,
got huge lab feet, but she's the sweetest dog you ever met. So I mean, but now she'll come in here sometimes and like my daughter, like I said, likes to watch those spooky shows. And then she was watching one in the living room one night. I said, "Look, I'm going to bed. Turn TV out when you go to bed." I didn't hear her turn TV out or anything. And I said, "Are you going to bed?" And she said, "In a minute." And I said, "What are you doing in there?" She said, "I don't know." She said, "I was just sitting here staring into the kitchen." I said, "Well, they say that they can see spirits and things." She said, "Daddy, you better shut up or I'm coming to get in the bed with you." So, it's ghost stories are fun too sometimes.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So I got a couple just real quick, and I'm going to be done. So you said something earlier, and I'm just going to reiterate this one real quick, that there are ghosts of pets.
Yes.
Okay. So
and we saw early on, we saw like a little shadow of a cat walking around. We didn't have a cat at that point. There was one that kind of hung around the outside of the property, but never in the house. But yeah, you'd see a little shadow of a cat. And I was talking to somebody that actually remembered the fourth owners. They raised kids here, and their kids took over the house when they died. But they said, yeah, Miss Louise always had cats in the Grove. So
cool.
Okay.
my last question, I'll let Adam get us ready to close out and everything. But my last question is, you were talking about North Texas up around Jacksonville, and I'm not sure if that's exactly close to it or not, but I know up that way somewhere, the Goat Man Bridge.
Oh, that's kind of north of Fort Worth. Yes.
Fort Worth.
Written about that. Been there. Yeah.
Real, true or false?
So, while I was there, I had no experiences, but I have had some paranormal investigative type people that I respect that went there and were able to actually have some experiences. So it's no longer a bridge for cars. It's a bridle trail now for you to ride your horses along. And so people still go out there all the time, but there's enough people that have had experiences. I would think that would be an interesting place to hang out for a while.
Yeah, cool. Well, Adam, I'm going to turn it over to you, man. You've been kind of quiet here lately.
I've been taking it all in. I've been enjoying listening. I mean, Mitchell, it's been great visiting with you.
I've enjoyed it. I've had a great time.
Honestly, it's probably the best conversation I've had in a long time with anybody, for that matter.
Thanks, Adam.
It's a lot of fun.
Well, hey, yeah, John, I'm sorry. It just is what it is, man. I've heard your stories. I've lived a lot of yours. But no, honestly, John and I like to go visiting places. We'd love to come up and visit sometime.
Absolutely.
I don't know if
I'm sorry, but do y'all do overnights or let people spend the night, or just tours only?
Tours only. I mean, at the end of the day, the Grove is a 1-bedroom, 1.5 bath house, so it'd be real awkward to have people stay overnight.
Yeah, especially me and Adam. We're awkward to start with.
We take up quite a bit of space, Mitchell. It's just a fact. But no. So information-wise, Mitchell, if somebody wanted a tour or anything like that, how could they get a hold of you?
Buy a book, anything you got. Tell us how to do it.
The easiest way to do any of that is just to go to our website. All you have to do is Google Grove Jefferson, and we'll show up. I think the actual URL is www.thegrove-jefferson.com. But it's easier just to Google Grove Jefferson, and we'll show up. It's got links to buy books. It's got tour information. Since my wife and I both still work. I'm a writer, and she is the district counselor for the school system here. So we can't do them during the week, and I wish we could. One of these days we'll get to retire and I can do them whenever I want to. But
right
now it's just Saturdays and Sundays, most Saturdays and Sundays. We do occasionally take a weekend off to help out with something here in town. There's always a festival or something going on in Jefferson. Really a great place. Also, there's a link on the Grove's website about Jefferson, just things to do in town. So you can actually get kind of the feel of being here. So it's a good place to start out.
Awesome. Well, we want to thank you again, Mitchell. It's Mitchel Whitington with the Grove out of Jefferson, Texas. It's been a great conversation, and honestly can't wait to come schedule a tour. Maybe I can definitely get the kids up there, because I just won't tell them what's going on. But my wife's pretty smart, so she might figure it out before I can get there. But
yeah, I definitely want to come up there one weekend, and I kind of wish we'd have come up there to do the interview now, but I appreciate you.
We'll do part 2 when y'all are here.
Yeah, oh, but yeah, we'd love that. But we always tell our listeners, if you don't seem like you fit in anywhere else, come hang out with us, because we'll hang out with a guy that lives in the haunted house, man. That's the kind of people we are. So, but we just enjoy visiting with people like you and others. Let me close with one question. I'm done this time, Adam, I promise. If somebody has a house or a place, an old building that they think is haunted, would that be something you would let them get in touch with you about, and maybe something you could write about or do something on? Or
if they had questions, I'm always open to questions. And
sure.
Actually, the downtown area here in Jefferson, a lot of the buildings were here in the 1800s. So I bet there's probably not very many places downtown where at one time or another, the owner hadn't pulled me aside and said, "You can't tell anybody this, but I just got to tell somebody." But they know I'm not going to think they're crazy necessarily. So they feel okay talking to me. So I get that all the time, and I'm always happy to do that. So
do you guys see that light keep blinking up there? It keeps dimming.
See what I mean, Mitchell? See what I mean? You got in his head.
It ain't ever done it before. Y'all had noticed I kept looking over my shoulder. So, all right.
You're rent free, Mitchell. See,
there you
go. You now on the Grove and John's head.
Great.
Yeah.
But, hey, it was great talking to you.